All right, let's do this. Toughest, smartest person in any particular room. You're in the wrong room. So I have James, who's a lot tougher, smarter, younger than I am. And man, has he made his money every week, James. How you doing? How you doing? What are your first thoughts?
Doing good. I'm doing good. We actually had a great card last weekend. The first seven fights were all finishes. We didn't see a third round until the eighth fight on the card. So that was a real exciting card to watch. The main event ended in a kind of controversial way. It was scheduled to be a five rounder, but after the third round was completed due to eye pokes, they ended up actually going to the scorecards at the beginning of the fourth round. So we didn't get to see the last two rounds. Luckily, because they went to the scorecards, because they had completed three full rounds due to the eye poke, we still did get our Substack pick correct because we had Song Yudong winning by decision or knockout, and he ended up winning by decision.
Nice, nice. And that plus money bet, that's money. Money you're not getting anywhere else. Like if you watch like stock shows like on CNBC and Bloomberg, they're not giving you stock picks. You can make money instantaneously and long term. So get into decision science, as we get into fundamental analysis, if we weave it all in mental health together in one nice package, it's time, money, uh, time's the only thing you can't get back in life. And you got to take advantage of things as they happen, situational analysis. All right. Uh, what fights are we going to look at, where they're at, and what's the first fight we're going to look at?
All right, so this week is kind of a filler week for fight cards. We're back in the Apex in Las Vegas, the small octagon. There probably won't be a crowd. There's rarely a crowd at the Apex.
Right.
So that sometimes we do see that affect the fighters. Like last week, even though it's a fight night, we were at a location, at a venue. There was a crowd in Seattle. That probably had something to do with the amount of finishes we saw. This week, we're back in the small octagon, no crowd, real quiet atmosphere. We probably won't see as many finishes this week.
Right.
And the first fight we're going to take a look at is Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov. And Temirov is on a five knockout streak right now. Only one of those knockouts have been in the UFC. That was over CJ Vergara, who's a pretty middle of the road fighter. So it's not a bad win, but it's not a great win. We see Charles Johnson has 7-inch reach advantage here, and I think he has a much better strength of schedule. He'll probably win this fight unless Timurov can catch him within the first round, which is like a real lucky straight solid punch straight to the chin. He could catch him in that blitz, but I think Johnson is going to win this one. So we're going to take his money line at minus 125.
Nice. Minus 125, that's a good number for UFC for what I'm seeing. What James does, he increases the value of the minus 125. The season is spot on, man. Every week he's gone on here. The minus 125, and we'll start tracking it more. The last 3 weeks, we'll let you know if you bet $100, $1,000 on each of James picks how much money you have made. What's the next fight we're going to look at, James?
All right, for this next fight, we've got Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich, and this one, uh, this one I just looked at, and I saw Andrea Lee is on a five losing streak right now, and that's really all I needed to see to decide that we're gonna pick against her. So we're just gonna go with JJ Aldrich for minus 200 on this one and just move on. We're not gonna waste too much time on that one.
Nice, nice, nice. What's the next fight we're going to look at?
Yeah. So this next one we've got Danny Silva versus Lucas Almeida, and neither one of these guys has too impressive of a strength of schedule. They're both kind of again more middle of the road fighters. We're gonna go with Danny Silva here, just because statistically on paper he looks a lot better. His significant strikes per minute and his accuracy is much higher, as well as his ability to mix in takedowns. He factors in takedowns more often than Danny Silva or than Lucas Almeida does. So going off of that, they have pretty similar strength of schedules. We're gonna go ahead and go with Danny Silva here for minus 230.
Minus 230. It's kind of high. Remember, you don't want to go class minus 250, but you can't divide by zero. And this leads to the mental health thing. Minus, especially with James knows what he's doing. So minus 230 is just good enough and money in our pocket. What's the next fight we're gonna look at?
All right, for this next one, we've got Chepe Mariscal versus Ricardo Ramos, and I think Chepe Mariscal is gonna win this one. He's actually pretty good. He does decently. He hasn't really been tested yet against. He's mostly gone up against other up and coming prospects. So he's been tested, but he hasn't been tested by any veterans who have like been around for a while, and Ricardo Ramos just isn't one of those veterans that's going to test him. That's why I'm going to pick against him here. And Trippy Mariscal is a pretty heavy favorite, so instead of picking his money line, we're going to go ahead and pick him to win by finish for minus 125.
Minus 125. That's pretty good. And now I'm noticing a pattern, and now my wife is watching the voice. The reason that's important is because of Dave Barrett. We're all in that network group with Zuckerberg, Dana White, Donald Trump. Dave Barrett was the creator of The Apprentice. We had the numbers where Trump came out of. And he made a point about the voice. What he cares about is a good show that night. To repeat people that Dana White puts in there, it's for a show. And we're going to make money off of that. Getting into Dana White's head. We're getting close. What's the next fight we're going to look at, James?
All right, so this one could potentially get really interesting here. We've got Austin Lane versus Mario Pinto, and Mario Pinto should win this one. Keyword being should. I think he's much better on the feet. Austin Lane is shown to be very chinnable. He's been knocked out in two of his last three. Um, what Austin Lane can do that we've seen him starting to implement more and more throughout his career in his last couple fights is wrestling. We've really seen him try to mix in takedowns, which is how he was able to beat Robelis to Spain by getting him to the ground and holding him down. Now, do I think he'll be able to do that to Mario Pinto? That's yet to be determined. He wasn't able to hold down Hyonata Denitz very well. He was able to take him down, but didn't hold him there and ended up getting knocked out in the second round by Denitz. So as long as Mario can not get on the canvas, as long as he can keep it on the feet, I think he should be able to knock Austin Lane out for minus 160.
Nice. Minus 160. Another good number, man. By knockout. What's the next fight we're going to look at, James?
All right, and this next one is it's a pretty similar situation to the one we just talked about, just a couple weight classes down. We've got Danny Barlow versus Sam Patterson, and ooh, this one's a real tough one because Sam Patterson is a great grappler. He's actually really good. He has 7 submissions on it under his belt, but that's pretty much where his skills end. He's not great on the feet. He is going up weight for this fight, so maybe we'll see him have a more solid build and a little bit stronger of a chin. But Barlow hasn't been tested too much. I think Barlow should win this fight, but my official pick is Barlow by knockout for minus 150. But if we were going to pick an underdog on this card, I would strongly consider Sam Patterson. But we're going to stick with Danny Barlow here. He has a lot of momentum right now. I believe he's undefeated, and I think if he can just ride that momentum out, he can keep his undefeated status.
Undefeated, and then again, you got to look at, and you're saying by knockout?
Yeah.
And what's the decision metrics on that?
His money line is minus 310, so we don't really want to pick his money line.
Got it. All right. Man, good stuff making us money, looking at the odds and the high probability. The next fight we're going to look at.
All right. So for this next one, we've got Hyder Emil versus William Gomis, and this one seems like a total mismatch, one of the biggest mismatches on the card. Uh, William Gomis just has a much better strength of schedule than Emil does. He has wins over Gio Anderson Brito and Francis Marshall, and Hyder is on a 2 knockout streak. Uh, but those were his 2 first fights in the UFC. This will be his third one, and they just weren't against the same caliber of opponents that Gomes has fought and won against. So we're gonna go with Willem Gomez's money line for minus 200 right here.
Money line, 200, never go past 250. Good stuff. It looks like a great part where we can get all of them. Remember, the highest level of probability is 80%. We use probability theory, we use science, and we use fundamental analysis, right? To make money. What's the next one we're going to look at, James?
All right. And for this next fight, we've got Nazrat Hawk Persarat versus Esteban Ribovics. And Esteban Ribovics won fight of the night on the Sphere card. Like hit the fight against he had against Daniel Zellhuber was the fight of the night on the Sphere card. And so I just don't understand why he's fighting on this thrown together filler card and not even at the co-main event spot. He's underneath the co-main event spot. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think he's definitely going to beat Nazarat. He's much crisper. He's a three-dimensional fighter. He has a lot better footwork, head movement. He can dance along the outside of the octagon, while Nazarat's a pretty one-dimensional, just eyes forward, punching forward fighter. I think Esteban will just be able to like dance around him and just select the shots he wants to select, and I think he'll be able to get this one done. So we're gonna go ahead and go for Esteban Ribovics by knockout or decision for minus 250.
Minus 250, knockout or decision, good mental health type situation where we got a lot of minus two bets, but the problem is that when people go to Vegas, if they do this or that, it's 20, most card games are between 4% and 20%. So right now, what James is doing you with the plus money bets in the big favorites, it's getting you close to 65 to 70%. You're winning a lot more, and you're making more money, and you're enjoying yourself more as you're watching these fights. All right, the next fight we're going to look at.
All right, so for this next fight, we're already at the co-main event. This seems like a smaller fight card than usual, so we can go ahead and save the actual pick for the Substack members.
Right on. So set the stage for us in this fight.
All right, so yeah, like I was just saying, this is kind of an interesting fight to have as the co-main when we could have had Ribovics fighting on the co-main because we have Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez, and both these guys have a pretty bad strength of schedule. Like I don't really like either of these fighters. Like usually use Cody Brundage as if somebody's been beat by Cody Brundage, I think they're gonna get beat again. That's like a loss to Cody Brundage is a red flag when I make my picks
right.
because Brundage has losses to like Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, Cedric Dumas, and Julian Marquez has losses to Zachary Reese and Marc-Andre Barriot. And if we look at that, Cody Brundage actually knocked out Zachary Reese, who knocked out Julian Marquez. But Cody Brundage has been chinned himself quite a few times. Julian Marquez does have power on his side. So this one will be interesting to see how it goes. It is currently a pick 'em at minus 110 each. And I will I'll save the winner for this Substack.
All right. For the winners on the Celtics, so that's the main event. How do you feel overall about card and about making money and overall UFC?
Oh, pretty good. And then we still have the main event left. We still have one more fight.
Okay, so
For the main event, we've got
are you going to keep down for the Substack, or are you going to give the pick out now?
we'll save this one for the Substack as well.
All right, right on. All right, so setting the stage for the main event tonight. But the way you're so good at what you're doing that at this point usually will be up. So you can think if you want to bet this fight, or if you want to pay a lesser amount, lock in that profit, right? We're headed toward a recession. Inflation is coming up. So James being so good, you're enjoying the fights up to this point, and you got options to hedge. It's where Warren Buffett podcast, where Warren Buffett disciplined investors. The Warren Buffett says, what? Always make money. So at this point, if I have a profit, I'm bidding just a little less to make sure I make profit. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, totally.
All right, right on. All right, so set the stage for the co-main event, man. Exciting night in Vegas this year.
All right, yeah. For this one, we've got Manel Kopp versus Alamabayev. And on the Tampa card, we really saw Manel Kopp show up and show out. He was in the flow state that night. He was moving crazy. And I think he will obviously do much better on the feet than Alamabayev. Asu Alamabayev can grapple. He's a very from that region of the world, from Kazakhstan, where they train grappling and wrestling from birth. So that is a serious threat for him. Manel Kopp has shown decent grappling defense in the past. I mean, he's had a matchup with Mokaev before, so he's had training camps to defend against grapplers. But we will see it. We'll see how this one goes, and the pick will be on the Substack for our members.
All right, so thanks for the members, and I'll have more written documentation for those who like literature from an investment standpoint. So you make money watching these fights. All right. So in closing, you got anything to close, James?
I mean, yeah, so far doing the research for this card, if you have to miss one card, go ahead and miss this card. If you have stuff to do next weekend, go ahead and get it done this weekend. Miss this card because you do not want to miss the card next weekend. Next weekend, we've got a pay-per-view coming up, and it's going to be stacked. It's going to be a great card. So if you have to choose, make time for next weekend.
Awesome. Make time for next weekend, but some people listen to the podcast, take notes, bet equal amounts. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, if your purpose is to save money, your purpose is to learn investing and have extra money, right? Bet equal amounts of each of James's picks, and your money will be saved in the extra dimension we add. Not only is this a business proposition, but it's also a mental health and enjoyable proposition. And on top of that, you get the high insights to learn around your surroundings in this crazy, evolving world. And like Winston Churchill said, you make your living from your labor, but you make your life when you give. Thanks for listening to the ESPC Podcast Network.